Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Jason Thomas. I oversee business development for Skeleton Key. Skeleton Key is a platinum-level FileMaker business alliance company, an authorized FileMaker trainer, a member of the Apple Consultants Network, and a Microsoft registered partner. We're headquartered here in St. Louis, Missouri, and have developers all over Missouri. The topic today in webinar number 13 of the 12 days of the FileMaker 12 series is window styles. Now, yes, you heard me right. This is webinar number 13 in the 12 days of FileMaker 12 series. So we're in bonus territory and excited to hear about window styles, which has some new features in FileMaker 12. They really give you a lot more control of new windows and their behavior, which from a user experience perspective, which is in many ways the perspective I try to bring to the table, is huge. We're going to take a look at the new Specify Advanced Styles option and see some examples to highlight what's possible. Before we dive in, though, we need to thank our host, FileMaker Academy. Skeleton Key is a proud charter member of the FileMaker Academy, which is a consortium of leading FileMaker development companies in the U.S. All FileMaker Academy companies are platinum-level FileMaker Business Alliance members who represent the best of the best in FileMaker development, and our purpose is to further educate FileMaker users and developers, to encourage best practices, and to foster further adoption of the software. A little bit of housekeeping. You'll notice you have the ability to ask questions, and we certainly encourage that. As questions come to mind, please type them in the box, the question box on your GoToMeeting panel. We'd love to see them. We'll cover as many questions as we can at the end. If we're unable to get to your questions today, or a question comes to mind later, send us an email directly at info, that's info, @skeletonkey.com, and we'll answer it for you then. Let me introduce our presenter today. Chad Adams is an information analyst and FileMaker certified developer with Skeleton Key. In the 15 plus years Chad's been working with FileMaker, he's run his own business, he's been an in-house developer, and he's worked with some of the world's best FileMaker consulting firms. He's authored articles for FileMaker Advisor magazine and presented at the FileMaker Developers Conference. But where you'll find Chad doing his best work, he would probably say, knowing him as I do, is at home with his family and being the dad that he is. So we'd like to, without further ado, welcome Chad and get underway.
Thanks, Jason. Today, we're going to, again, talk about the new window styles features in FileMaker 12. We're going to try to go through the PowerPoint presentations fairly quickly. I know that the demos should be a little more fun, so bear with me as we kind of talk about some of the higher concepts here, and then we'll jump into some examples pretty quick. So let's take a look. What we are talking about is this new checkbox in the new Windows dialog. So we always had the top 5 options there for window name, height, width, distance from the top, distance from the left. But now we can specify the advanced options, and really those give us a lot of flexibility. So the first one we're going to look at is this document window. For all intents and purposes, the document window is really the window we've always had. Whenever we do a new window, that's the window of FileMaker 10 and 11 and so on. That's what we've had before. We do have options here for creating a new window where we get to turn off the close menus, minimize, maximize, zoom, control area, and resizing. So that's going to play into how we design things in the future. But essentially, the document window is what we've always had. This is a new one for us, the floating document window. You can think of this similar to an existing window we've had in the past, except this always stays on top. So it allows interaction with the windows in the background, meaning that you can change focus, the scripts you have can change focus, but the window itself is going to remain visible to the user and in front of the other windows. We'll look at some examples of some gotchas with this and how you can possibly get stuck in some areas and how it doesn't quite behave like I thought it would initially, but I think it's really good and gives a lot of flexibility. An example of this from FileMaker that you are used to would be the inspector window. The inspector is a floating window. You don't always have to have focus on the inspector window. You can move in and out of it, but it's always there, and it always allows interaction, and it sits on top of the other windows. And then the other checkbox we have here is the dialog window. This is really the place where we get into the most caveats and the most things we need to be careful with as developers. This always stays on the top, just like the float window, except this one will retain focus and not allow you to interact with the windows behind this window. There are some limitations in regards to what script steps are available and what menus are available, and it is possible to get stuck here and have to do a force quit to get out of FileMaker. And as you can see, the zoom control area and the minimize area are always locked on this option. You do have the option to turn on or off the close options and maximize and resizing. Some examples of this that we're familiar with within FileMaker are going to be something like the manage database window, the calculation window, or custom functions. And there's several other places in FileMaker, but those are some examples to help you kind of envision this in a way that you're already familiar with. There are some limitations. Although the script steps appear in the edit script dialog, several of them are not available when you're in a modal dialog window, and several of them have limitations. This information is available in the FileMaker help documentation, so I'm going to let you peruse it there instead of reading it to you here. Basically, though, any attempt to open a non-dialog window will fail when a dialog window is open and has the focus. And one of those places that might catch people are that like on-timer scripts will not run unless they were called from the currently active dialog window. So let's jump into our demos. What can we do with this? Bear with me for a second while the screen flashes, and I may have to, nope, it's going to work out fine. Okay. So I've got a little FileMaker file here that I've made some examples in, and we're just going to kind of play around with pulling up different types of new windows and seeing some of the things that happen. So, for example, this new document window is going to be very similar to the windows we've always had. I can click into the background and click into the foreground, and it's just a new window like we're used to. Okay. The new floating window is going to retain focus, or retain the foreground spot. So I can click into the background, and I can even interact with the records back here. I could do something and create a new record if I wanted to, but the foreground window is the one that's going to be what I see. So take care of that, and I'll close this back out. And then the last one is the new dialog window, which it does not allow me to click. I'm clicking here in the background now. I cannot bring that window to the foreground. I cannot interact with it or do anything. I am locked into this window. Now, something that is interesting is that the new dialog window is, I call it nesting. It'll let you build up dialog windows. So, for example, I can throw up another dialog window and even another one. And the one that's in front is going to be the one that retains focus. So I'm trying to click and go somewhere else, but I can't. Sometimes you'll get a little flash like I was getting there. I can bring that to the foreground for just a second. But then when I close this window, the window behind has retained its modal status. So I still can't click to the window behind it either. I can't get out of this. And so as you stack up dialog windows like that, they will retain their modal status, but you can put a new modal or a new dialog window in front of it if you choose. Also, if you start with a floating window and then you open a dialog window, the floating window stays in front. This is the part where I said earlier that I think it is a little bit different than how I had envisioned this working possibly when I first read about the feature or heard about the feature. And So in this case, I can only interact with the windows in the background. The window in the background is modal. It has the focus, and I can't change that focus. But it's possible to have that window kind of hidden out of the way like that, and really kind of be confused about what's happening, and it's not clear that I'm in that situation. And also, I'm trying to bring this window to the foreground so I can interact with it and close it, and it's not available either. So be careful in the floating window and dialog window options there that you could get yourself stuck. Okay. Let's look at another example. Here I'm going to use a modal dialog window, but I'm going to use it off screen. I don't know about you, but a lot of my development, it feels like I want to retain the focus of the sound set that I'm on or the layout that I'm on, and I want to do something as a developer off screen and not have the window flashing in front of the developer. So I'll throw a new window up off the screen, do some work, and then close it. And as I build larger systems, it's a common bug of mine. I'll admit it's a downfall here on my part. A common bug of mine is to not always clean those up as well as I should. And so I end up sometimes in debugging situations where I find that this new window is kind of stuck off screen somewhere out of view, and it's not really doing any harm, but it's out there and it's causing problems. So it's going to be even more important as we move into FileMaker 12 that we are we do a good job of cleaning up those windows. So for example, if I put a new dialog window here, this window is now off screen, and there's nothing I can do to get it back necessarily. I can't interact with my scripts. They're all grayed out. I've got the window in focus already, but sometimes I might have something like a move to 0, 0. This is just a move script step, moving the window back to a position where I can get to it, but that's not even available. I can't get to it. And so the way that I built this in where I can get out of it, for one thing, I've got double monitors, and I can see it on my other monitor. But one of the things I've done is I've got a save me layout here that essentially has a script trigger on it that will run on layout load that will bring that window back to my 0, 0 position. So that's what's happened, is that I ran the 0, 0 script, and now that window is back here behind everything else, and it's still in a dialog status, but it's right there, and I'm able to get out of it. So once again, let's take a look at that because I had the wrong windows open. I put this off screen. I've built in a safety net by having a on layout script trigger that runs a script to bring my window back to the main area for me. So just kind of a little tool there to help keep yourself from getting locked out. Also, we've got the same techniques and the same features available to us in the go to related record step. So new windows are available there. We've got the same options there. So I've got a list of names here in the background, and we're going to play around with go to related record just a little bit. So if I look for somebody named John, and I do that in a document window, that's going to be exactly like we've always had in the past. If I use the floating window, that's the new one. I can turn around here and I can do this again, but it's not going to get this floating window is not going to go to the background. And so I can interact with this document window that's in the background now, and I can close that. My floating window will always remain in the foreground. And then my dialog window is just what we talked about before, just like from the new Windows script step. I cannot interact with the background here, and I cannot click that button again, even though I'm trying to. So the difference with that, floating will let me again choose the modal, and once the modal window is up, then that's a very easy way for me to get locked into this situation where floating is in front, but the modal window has focus. And in this case, I've got the closed windows off, so I really have to kind of move that window around so I can get to my closed window button. And yes, for those of you who are wondering, as I was building this demo file, I think I had to force quit 2 or 3 times because I got myself stuck. So as you're learning about this technique, my recommendation would be not to jump in and start playing with this in live customer files or production files at your company. I would recommend making a sample file, playing with it a little bit, getting familiar with it, And then once you start working on it in the main system, I would recommend doing that, making frequent backups and making sure that you have an escape route. So, for example, my little save me layout, have something like that set up to begin with, or you're going to find yourself having to crash your database just to get out of it. Let's take a look at a few of the ways we can use this. One of the ways we can use this is through data entry. So, for example, if I were to pull this screen up, I'm entering a new person here, and I've got a screen up where I'm entering a new record, and there's no other script in the background. And if you've ever tried to do this in FileMaker 11, FileMaker 10, FileMaker 9, anything in the previous versions, you had to kind of do some gymnastics to get in this status. Something with a pause loop script and some custom menus to turn off the close button and things like that. And so now I'm able to get here, and I can't get out. And so I can't even continue. I've got them locked down until they do what I want the user to do. Okay. Let me see if I've still got this example that I wanted to show you. Let's look at this. This is the old technique. Let's take a look at how maybe this would have worked and try to get my script debugger sized correctly. And I'll show you a way that I've used in the past. So this is just going to be a name picker, and we're going to go to the new window, go to the layout that I want, my name picker layout, hide the status bar, and then I'm going to get stuck right here in this loop so that I can make this modal. And so by doing that, I've mimicked what FileMaker 12 will do for us now automatically. I can't click out of this screen, but what I can do is I can close the window. I actually have a custom menu turned on here to not allow that, but without the custom menu, it'd be easy to close this, and then what do we end up with? We end up back on our main screen with a pause loop in effect, and that will mess up a lot of programming. And so, there's a lot of, I call it gymnastics, that has to happen here to get us into the status that we want to be. So if I choose this, we'll get out of the loop, and we'll set our information. Now watch the difference between the old method and the new method here. So in the new method, this is the whole script. I'm simply going to the layout, going to the new window, changing the layout that I want, and locking my status area, and there we are. There's no script running in the background to throw me for a loop. I can't click out of this. I can't close it. I can't do anything else except choose the name. And when I choose the name, I am running a little different script. If you notice, in the first technique, I had to run like a subscript that would unpause my loop. But now I'm just taking the information that I have here, closing the window, and setting my ID back with that information. So a very much cleaner way to do pickers and things of that nature. As I started reading about this feature and I started thinking about this, some of the things I had questions about how I was going to use this, and so I came up with the picker, the dialog windows. Let's see if we can take a look at that. So I don't have a dialog window here, but essentially, if you were to use it for a dialog, instead of showing a message, now you can effectively have a FileMaker layout be your message. You can use that and offer as many buttons as you want, as many fields as you need to fill in, not just the 3 that the show message dialog will allow you, or the 3 buttons that it will allow you. You have a much more control over that dialog window and what it looks like. And then also with the layout themes, the different things FileMaker 12 gives us, you can make it look like a dialog window that matches your interface a little more than just a standard OS interface if you choose to do that. I thought about the pickers, obviously. One of the things that came to mind is this idea of locking the screen. I had a client several months ago that needed to be able to walk away from the computer and not have to close down FileMaker, but they needed to keep prying eyes away from what was going on and keep people from doing data entry. They didn't have authorization or doing searches or whatever. And so we kind of came up with a solution for that. But this would be a great way to allow or not allow people to mess with your computer, is to throw up a dialog or a modal window here that they can't get out of. And if I were serious about not letting them have access to stuff, I would have hidden the status area here and stuff and the layout pickers and whatnot. But you can kind of see that, I can't get back out of this to do anything. And so I can even password protect that and make sure that they don't get out unless they do the password that I've set up. So really, I've just gone through the items that I had questions about. Some things that came to mind that I haven't demoed here, but I thought about were things like printing and showing a print preview. I don't know how you do things in your systems, but sometimes when I'm developing, I'll whenever I print something, I'll walk the user through kind of this print routine that takes the layout and puts it into a new window and enters preview mode and sizes it and shows them a nice preview of what's going to show print, and then throw a show message window up there to ask them, do you want to print this or just a page setup or cancel or whatever. But I think we need to be careful with the new window dialog now. It's going to be easy to inadvertently lock someone out. If you already had a routine like that built in and you go and start flipping all those over to Modal, close buttons don't work in preview mode. And so if you've got the close window turned off and the only way out of that window is to click on the close window button, then they could very easily be stuck. If you'll come back to my first example here, when we use a modal window, you can see that I lose my my status stuff on the bottom here. So it's not like I can switch to browse mode or I can switch to change size or anything of that nature. There's all my tricks kind of go away. I really am stuck in that window. And so if we're also in preview mode, which I'm just flipped over to preview mode here, this close button is not available to me. So, and I can't go to browse mode to make it available. So, some stuff to think about. There's a lot of power here. I think that this new window feature is going to be one of the things that is a sleeper feature in FileMaker 12. I think that when you first look at it, you think, yep, it's a checkbox. There's not much there. But it's one of those things that we had a way to do something similar in past versions of FileMaker, but this technique is so much cleaner and requires so much less trickery to make it happen that I think it's really going to be useful to speed up your development, and it's really going to be a valuable tool. Let's go back to PowerPoint for a moment. We'll wrap things up on some summarizations, and if you have questions on anything I've said, please start thinking about what those questions might be. So to summarize what we just talked about, the advanced window style is going to be useful. I think that it's going to be really useful in the way that I program. I think that we're going to be able to do things quicker, better, faster with less trickery in our programming. And I think that if you're not careful, it's going to be easy to use it poorly and get stuck. And unfortunately, what that means is force quitting or crashing your system in order to get out of FileMaker, which is always a bad thing. I think it's really important that one thing you take away from this lesson is to make sure that you're testing and learning on a sample file. Again, just in my testing with this, even though I've worked with it quite a bit, I kind of got myself in a corner, and I had to force quit a couple times with my sample file there. Thankfully, when we get done, I'll probably throw that file away, and I don't need to retain that. So. There are a lot of resources out there as far as learning and keeping track of some of this stuff. So the FileMaker Academy is one of those resources. There's the training series. I think it's going to be released for 12 in June or July. I forget the exact date on that, but that's coming. There's more information at the URL there. The developer community in general is always eager to help and good at that. And really, the FileMaker help documentation covers this feature fairly well, explains how everything works, and gives you some good examples and some ideas there about what to use it for. Jason, do you want to take it back at this point and talk about
Yeah, we've got some questions here. First of all, Chad, in the past we've been able to make these demo files available, and there are some questions about whether this one will be available. Thoughts there?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll make this available. I may do a little cleanup there because I don't have it set up right now for a very easy walking through a demo file, but I'm happy to open it up and make it available without any problem at all.
Can we take a look at the safety net script that reselected the modal window? There's a couple of people asking for that. I think it might be worth taking a look.
Absolutely. Essentially, I'm going to go to layout mode here, and we're going to take a look at my Save Me layout. So, this is my layout, and I have a script trigger here that says on layout enter. I'm going to move to 00, which is just a script that I have set up. And my script looks like this, where I'm moving the window to 00. This was really a save me from an off window or an off-screen window. It was not, in fact, closing my modal window or anything of that nature. You could expand this and make it that. You could make it a close my window or something of that nature if you needed to. Or you can go so far as if you don't need to close the window right away. So maybe what happens is you do like I've done here, where you just move, you go to a new layout, you move to where you can see it, and then you have your close button right there on the screen. Did that answer the question? Yep.
Yes. How do the window options work with FileMaker Go, if at all?
That is a good question. They do work with FileMaker Go, and new windows in FileMaker Go itself behave a little differently. In FileMaker Go, the window always ends up maximized essentially, and so floating really doesn't have the same perspective that it does in FileMaker, because it's always in front anyway. You can't really have two windows on the screen at the same time. Unfortunately, I didn't get to testing in FileMaker Go as much as I wanted to. I think that'd be a great follow-up to this, so we could do some additional testing and just seeing what kind of downfalls are available there, because I think that it'd be easy to get stuck there as well. But I haven't played with the idea of going into Go and then like trying to change windows one time in a modal window or trying a floating window and stuff like that. So I don't know the full answer to that question.
How about kiosk mode? How's the function work in kiosk mode?
Essentially, in kiosk mode, it's going to work like it has in the past. Kiosk mode is going to be a full screen for you. Even in kiosk modes of the past, whenever you were put up a new window and it was smaller than the main window, the whole screen would essentially adopt and show that window. And so again, kiosk mode, even though we may have thought of kiosk mode as kind of being modal or being a floating window in the past, kiosk mode really has been a document window from the get-go. And so these windows will work just like you'd expect them to on FileMaker. It's just it's going to be more of a full screen format. You'll definitely want to make sure you have your close buttons on your layout.
Any recommendations on dealing with these new windows and Windows operating systems when FileMaker Pro is running full screen? Evidently, and I'm not familiar with this, that new windows resize all windows. You familiar with that?
Yeah, yeah. On the Windows platform, there's an application window in addition to your file window, and so you have the maximize button, the little square up in the top right-hand corner there, that pulls the window and fills the whole application window. You're going to end up with new windows in FileMaker, on Windows. It's kind of a confusing way to say that. You're going to lose your maximized status, and it's going to pull it into more of a zoom status. And so it's still going to do that in FileMaker 12. It's going to put you into a non-maximized state, and then it's going to behave like I've demonstrated here. Now, something that I've not tested is having it on Windows, throwing a new window and being like in a modal situation and then zooming that, or having it in a floating situation and zooming that. My expectation would be that it would be just like being here and basically maximizing this to where it filled the screen. I wouldn't be able to get to that window behind the screen without using a little square in the corner on Windows and making it smaller so I can see it, or even going here. If I went here, though, it's not going to bring it to the foreground. It's just going to let me interact with it. So as far as scripts go, I could see some potential there for, I don't know this for a fact, but in the way that I was just describing, putting a new window up and having it be off screen, on the Windows platform, it might be possible to have your floating window be maximized and do some work behind that floating window as kind of a mask to what's happening there instead of it being off screen.
So is there a function or a way to determine the window state to know if it's maximized or at a restored size?
Yes, there is. Let's jump here into Data Viewer, and we'll just take a look at that. I'm trying to remember what it is. We've got Windows Zoom level gives us the percentage. Window mode, I think, gives browse mode. You know, I'd have to look that up. But look here, I've got it right here. Go back one.
And you see, folks, when we talk about the resources, this is why we talk about the resources.
Get functions. And I go and use this all the time, so this is a little technique, just as kind of a little bonus, if you will. But if you're on the Mac side especially, you can go into the FileMaker application and show contents, and the help files are all in there as HTML files, and I've made bookmarks for those myself and have those. Yeah, I forget. I'm sorry. I think it's here. I forget what it is. I believe it is available, but I'm just not sure.
So we'll note that for a follow-up, and as we have a few minutes to actually look through that, we can answer that. Next question, is there a way to click a button on a non-focus floating window and have that button's action occur immediately? Or do you still need to activate or focus on the floating window, then use a second click to perform the button action?
Yeah, that was a question I had for myself as well. You know, so let me clarify the question the way I think of it anyway, to make sure I'm understanding what you're talking about. You know, I've built systems in the past where I thought it would be really cool to have this navigation palette off to the side with my buttons about where I'm going to go, and then my main window didn't have to have the clutter of having like this navigation, you know, button stuff happening. And so, you know, imagine with me if you had, you know, like two windows that were up here, and the first window had like buttons on the side, kind of like a web page might, you know, and the second window was like this. And the way I'm understanding the question is that, you know, this is a floating window over here, so it's up all the time. Sometimes I have focus on my main window and I'm interacting with things, and I want to like click a button and go somewhere else, have it respond immediately. And I probably wasted more time trying to get that to work, getting ready for this webinar than anything else, and I cannot figure out a way to make that happen. And everything that I've tested, you have to click the window to bring it to the focus, and then click again to perform the button.
Let's see. Some suggestions, Chad, that you might want to update your. You might want to update the bookmarks there.
Oh yeah, sorry.
FileMaker 11 help.
I appreciate that. I want that, and thankfully you can just change that, and it will pull that right up. But that, thank you. I realized I have been working in the past.
Have you developed any custom functions to help with Windows? What about database metadata repositories or on Windows and attributes? Anything of that nature?
You know, I've not gotten that far into it yet. I think we're going to see a lot of stuff like that come out from the developer community in the future. That's one of the things that I meant when I said I think this is a sleeper function. I think there's going to be a lot of places where we can, you know, take advantage of this in ways that we're not thinking of just yet. So, you know, the obvious things that you know come to mind are the same ways we've been using new Windows, and we've been, you know, trying to get this functionality. But now that the functionality is there, I fully expect the community to do what we've always done, and that is to push the bounds and think outside the box and use it in ways that maybe it was never intended to use, but turn out to be really cool.
All right. Well, folks, thanks again for joining us. We've certainly enjoyed it, and stay tuned for the next webinar, I believe on Thursday, May 24th, and talking about server performance. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks.